Hello, everybody, and this is the Scumbags of Wrestling Podcast. My name's Sean, coming to you from London, Ontario, Canada, and we're doing it first. Thanks to Chris Maloney over at the Sharpshooter Podcast. He has got us hooked up doing live on YouTube, and we'll see how this goes. People can link in to us, reach us, ask us any questions, and us being myself and Chris Maloney from the Sharpshooter Podcast. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. It was just kind of weird because as you're doing your intro, I went over to the actual YouTube link, and there was like you talking, but then there was also it's kind of funny now you're actually talking on YouTube as there I am. So yeah, it's kind of weird. So don't try to watch YouTube the same time as you're doing a recording. It kind of trippy. So
Yeah.
anyways,
lag there.
yeah, but like I was saying in the last show, we just did trial and error. So it's exciting. It's a new format for both shows. So yeah, it's excited to see where we can go with this.
Yeah, and as you said, reason for doing this is the fact that we're going to be hitting a lot of shows over the next couple of months, including here in London and Toronto, and that's not just Smash Wrestling, but also WWE. And so, why not try this experiment and see what we can do and be more interactive?
And on that note, free advertising and behind me as well. So it's we can get the word out about both of our brands.
Very nice shirt. I got the podcast shirt on. So anybody who's looking for one of those shirts, they can contact us. We do our shirts through Twisted Tees out of Alora. So yeah, they're only $25. And as you saw, we got the two designs, the one that Chris has and the podcast one. So it is Scumbags podcast. We normally start off with the indie scene and especially with Smash Wrestling. So it's only appropriate that we start with this Sunday right here in London, Ontario at the London Music Hall. Door opens at 4 o'clock with the first bell at 5. And it's Get Your Fight On, presented by Smash Wrestling. Excuse me. So we'll run down the card, give you your thoughts on what we're going to see, and see how close we are on it. We'll start off with Alec Realm of the Tyson Dukes Wrestle Factory taking on another Tyson Dukes Wrestle Factory member in Jim Strider. Strider is going to be part of the Northern Tournament the following week. What do you see happening in this match, Chris?
Between the two, definitely contrasted styles. I mean, Alec Realm is a very gifted athlete. I mean, he's one of the high flying types. Strider, on the other hand, just natural kind of purebred wrestler, so to speak. He reminds me a lot in comparison wise to, and I'm assuming that you'll probably be talking about AEW, probably sometime this show, but Strider reminds me of Hangman Page. The comparisons between the two. Now, obviously, Strider's got a long way to go, but I think Strider has a good future ahead of him, and in this match, even though, like I said, both are gifted and talented, and everything else, the Strider for the win in this one.
Excellent. Okay, so another person from the Tyson Dukes Wrestle Factory is Violet Lee, London's own Violet Lee, teaming up with the Muscle, her mentor, trainer, inspiration, taking on Killscreen, the team of Anthony Gaines and hacker Scotty O'Shea.
So this one kind of baffles me because you've got O'Shea, who is one of the most underrated as far as Smash Wrestling and the Ontario independent scene goes. Teaming with Gaines, who a bit of a wild card in him. He's, you got both of those guys and immensely talented, but how do you put them up against the Muscle and Violet Lee? I mean, Violet Lee, to my knowledge, first time she's ever been in a mixed kind of intergender tag team match. So as far as this goes, it could go either way, but I think if anybody's going to take the fall, it's going to be Gaines. And I think, Muscle probably have something to do with it, but I see Violet Lee pinning Gaines in this one.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Violet and Muscle should hopefully win this one. It's just an interesting contrast in styles because when you think of Muscle and Violently, especially with everything they've done lately with getting the chain after every win, they're kind of a comedy-ish type act, and Killscreen is anything but comedy. They're more of a hard-hitting, especially with Scotty also been doing the hardcore matches that he was supposed to have with Kevin Blackwood. There's two different styles going on there, but I do see Violently and Muscle pulling at the victory.
I just want to make an announcement just before you go into the next match. You have your first official chatter on YouTube right now. It's somebody known as Canadian Blu-ray, and they're saying, "Hi, totally can't wait for Sunday." So you've already got chatters.
Awesome. This would be Daniel. Hello, Daniel, and welcome to the chat. So Chris is going to be monitoring anything that is said, and we can pop in with any comments. Feel free to invite others to the conversation, Daniel. The more the better. And we'll carry on with another match on this card coming up on Sunday. And that's Brent Banks, one of the pillars, taking on the leader of Disgraceland, John Greed.
This one here, it's as much as I'm a fan of Brent Banks, it's going to go to John Greed. No way in the world you're going to take what's going on with that group and the way they're getting the exposure right now and kill it. So I see John Greed not without the help of his trenchmen, so to speak, but I see John Greed going over in this one.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. You got Albright and Logan, who are definitely embedded into Disgraceland, and they're going to be not too far behind their leader, as opposed to Brent Banks, who is part of the pillars, but the other three pillars are going to be busy with their own respective matches that are coming up in that card. So unfortunately, Brent Banks is going to take another loss, I see, and Disgraceland is going to establish himself a little bit more. Moving on, we got the tag team titles on the line with Halal Beefcake taking on Fight or Flight.
So this one here, I don't know too much about Fight or Flight. I've watched some of their promo stuff just recently on YouTube and stuff like that. As far as this match goes, Halal, man, that's tough to say. HB is the Beefcake guys, the Beefers. I'm going to call them the Beefers. The Beefers are going to take this one, retain the championship, especially with their alliance with Kevin Bennett. No way in the world that you're not going to see all three as champion as part of the Kevin Bennett experience, and Bennett hasn't achieved that yet. So until Bennett achieves that, you won't see the Beefers losing.
Yeah, I think it's still too early for Halal Beefcake to lose the titles. The last time we saw Fight or Flight in London, it was mind-blowing how they were going all around. I believe they were against Jason Kincaid and so the team of the Renegades, the Neon Ninja, and also two guys from the Wrestle Factory, including Alec Realm, who took a hellacious dropkick from the Renegades. But they wowed the crowd, but it's not going to be enough to take the tag team titles. So I got Halal Beefcake retaining. Moving on, we have The Blade, formerly known as Pepper Parks, taking on Mike Bailey, and he wowed the crowd the last time in London when he took on Kevin Bennett, and that match is now posted for free for people to get another taste of Mike Bailey before the Sunday. What do you see happening in that match?
It's tough because Bailey is very gifted, very talented guy. But I mean, the way the Blade and the Butcher are going, you could possibly see a DQ. And when I say that, it's because when you get the Blade, Butcher's not far behind. So the fact is, if you've got Butcher at ringside, I see, yeah, that's my prediction right there. You know what? Bailey picks up the win, but picks up the win by DQ. Gets basically his ass beat after the match is over. And then who makes the save but Psycho Mike Rollins in his return to Smash Wrestling. So there's my prediction right there.
Yeah, it's a good prediction. And yeah, anything can happen. I don't think the Butcher's going to be too far behind, as you said. And it was announced that Psycho Mike is set to return, yet he's not on this card. So it makes sense. And in the first round of the tournament, happening 6 days later in the Northern, we have the Blade against Psycho Mike. So it all makes sense. And yeah, I see this being a good high-flying match to begin with, but either no decision or the Blade is going to win. Moving on to the rest of the card, we've got 2 matches left, and that's Sebastian Suave of the Pillars taking on TJP, the first cruiserweight champion and winner of the CWC. He's making his debut with Smash on Sunday.
So funny you just mentioned that match. I asked Daniel in the chat there what match he was looking forward to the most, and he said TJP versus Sebastian. And I put winner. He hasn't responded yet, but I'll wait and see who he picks. As far as my pick goes, it's going to be TJP. If you look behind me right there is an action figure of him hoping to get signed. He is one of the most gifted guys who I've seen the past couple of years. To know his backstory is absolutely amazing. But furthermore, Sebastian Suave needs his ass kicked in this one because he needs to make a decision whether or not he's going to be face or heel. And again, maybe we get to see the blowout between him and Anthony Kingdom James, or maybe we get to see the blowout between him and maybe Tarek. Who knows what's going to happen? But I see TJP, no way in the world he's losing this one.
Yeah, I would agree. TJP is phenomenal. This is an opportunity for him to re-hit the indie scene after leaving WWE. And there's that conflict between Anthony Kingdom James and Sebastian Suave of where his loyalty is going to be, whether it's with the Pillars or with Kingdom. And there's more drama to happen. I see this Sunday between the two. And Kingdom could be the one who costs Sebastian the win as well.
Yeah, just for the record, Daniel picks TJP as well. So it looks like all 3 of us.
Excellent. And the main event involves 2 matches that are going to happen the following weekend during the Northern Tournament, squished into one match. Carter Mason has been going after Tyson Dukes, trying to get a match with him, and they're in the match along with the number 1 contender, Kevin Bennett, and the current Smash Wrestling champion, Tarek.
No, I think you said in a previous show that title's not in the line in this one, right?
Yeah, it's non-title.
So saying it's non-title, I'm going to pick Kevin Bennett for the win. I see with the fact the Northern Tournament's coming up and Kevin Bennett getting his title shot, I think this would be leverage. So I think you're going to see Kevin Bennett win this one, have some bragging rights for the next week and a half or so, and then go into the Northern Tournament with basically a win over the current Smash Wrestling champion, Tarek.
I would concur with that one. I got thinking as you're talking that since Mason has wanted his match with Tyson Dukes and they're going to be in the first round of the tournament, they might actually take each other out of this fatal 4-way. You also have the tag team champions of Halal Beefcake still in the building, and that could end up being a 3-on-1 situation with Kevin Bennett and Tarek. And perfect opportunity to prove your dominance and go in with a lot of momentum as you challenge on night number 2 at the tournament, and could be Kevin Bennett's time. So that is Get Your Fight On, happening this Sunday, May 26th at the London Music Hall. Doors opening at 4 p.m. First bell at 5. More tickets are still available at smash-wrestling.com, and they range from $25 for general admission and $45 for VIP seating if there's anything left. Then we move right back along the calendar to the Northern Tournament, which we've talked about a whole bunch of times during that review of Get Your Fight On, because there's a lot of things that will happen Sunday to reflect what's going to happen 6 days later during the Northern. And we'll just bring up the card for the Northern Tournament because it's 2 nights. Last year was 1 night and 2 shows. This time they're split it into 2. It's going to happen at the Franklin Horner Community Center in Toronto, and that is on June 1st and June 2nd. Both Chris and I are going to it, and we'll just bring up the card. Well, there is Carter Mason against Tyson Dukes in the first round. The Butcher versus Psycho Mike Rollins. Lufisto taking on Sebastian Suave. Jason Kincaid against Jim Strider. Ultimo Dragon against Matt Cross. Mike Bailey versus John Greed. Evil Uno against Anthony Green. Josh Briggs against Stu Grayson. And that's just on first night. All the winners will go to the second day on June 2nd. And they will battle it out to go to the Fatal 4-Way Finals. And then also, during night 2, Kevin Bennett has a wrap-off against Chuck Clare. Jody Threat's going to be in action. And the tag team titles are on the line as Hello Beefcake take on a team called Lotus. I have no idea who Lotus is. I'm going to be looking forward to checking them out between now and next week when we do our actual review and predictions for for the Northern Tournament. And included that, they just announced that the pre-show for the night 2 is going to be free. No ticket needed unless you have, except for having a ticket to the second night. And that has doors opening at 12 with a meet and greet at the Stars. There's a Friends of Smash Wrestling bonus show. I've heard that the Tyson Dukes Wrestle Factory is going to be part of that. There's a Wrestlers versus Fans Wrestling Trivia at 3 p.m. and 4:30. Can't believe this is actually happening. But the Muscle is going to be reading Everybody Poops. Now, there was talk that they were going to read a children's book. The children might have to read to Muscle, but the book in choice is Everybody Poops. And 5 o'clock is night number 2 of the Northern Tournament. So without us analyzing what's going to happen, what are you looking forward to next weekend, Chris?
4 words: Ultimo Dragon, Lufisto. I guess that's only 3 words, but anyways, Ultimo Dragon, I think I said this last week as well. I've been a huge fan of not necessarily his WWE run, but his WCW and everything he did in Mexico and New Japan. Lufisto for, various reasons, but the main one being the fact is, and the whole time I've known that she's existed as a wrestler, which is, almost a decade and a half at this point. I've only get to see her wrestle once live. And knowing this is her farewell tour, it'll be something to see. I wouldn't mind. I don't know if she'll win the tournament. I think it'd be pretty cool if she did, but hopefully they let her go far in this one. It'd be interesting to see too some of the younger wrestlers against some of the more veterans. Carter Mason against Tyson. I think you said Jim Strider is facing. Who's Jim Strider facing again?
Jason Kincaid. Jason
Kincaid from the tag team there. Some of these guys I'm still getting used to as far as who they are, but I know Kincaid at the last show here in London, the tag team match that they're in, he's absolutely phenomenal. When I first saw him, I was, I think he was selling merch or something like that, and I was like, okay, who is this guy? And all of a sudden you see him in the ring, and it's like, holy crap, gifted guy. And a lot of the Smash talent, that's who they are, just completely gifted, just. So it'll be interesting to see how the tournament plays out. The rap battle, Kevin Bennett, I think, is probably going to end up on the losing end of that one in more ways than one. Muscle reading just is a phenomenal sight as it is. And then the Fatal 4-Way.
It's phenomenal because Muscle reads.
Well, you know what? If he gets stuck, just maybe give him his spinach, bring the animal crackers in, and away he continues. But I think all in all, it's for the fan experience that Smash is presenting on June 1st and 2nd, not just the name value of the guys who are coming in, but the fact is, the fans versus wrestlers as far as the trivia goes, and just the overall atmosphere that's going to be June 1st and 2nd for Smash is going to be absolutely amazing. And I remember when you were talking, I think it was this time last year, about Tyson saying they're going to make this into a 2-day tournament, and then sure enough, it's happened, and it's going to be a better fan experience because everything's not just going to be one and done and rushed, So anyways, yeah, I'm going on and on and on. I am excited about this, and I can't wait to go next weekend to Toronto to check all this out.
I can tell you, last year definitely wasn't a rushed atmosphere because they didn't even get to do the break that they were supposed to do to kick us out of the building and reload and reset everything. And it went a full night, and like it was a good 8 hours, I think, including the meet and greets and intermissions. But I think it was probably just too much for them to do all in one shot, and that's why they did split it up. But it's amazing that they were able to set up all the extra things that they're doing on Sunday with the trivia and the storybook reading and the factory being there. So it's going to be a great show. Heading on to the rest of the summer of Smash, this Northern tournament isn't the only tournament that they're doing. They've teamed up with 5 other organizations throughout North America to present the Smash Wrestling Tag Team Invitational Tournament, and the winner of it will actually get a Smash Wrestling Tag Team title match against whoever the champions are. And the organizations have narrowed theirs down over the last couple of weeks, and I think still are. In the case of Smash Wrestling, they had the Butcher and the Blade lose to the Pillars, and Killscreen, I forget who they went against at the moment, but they ended up advancing to the second round, and they beat the Pillars to advance to the final or the semifinals, which is happening July 6th at Just Add Water, or Just Add Wrestling, the Franklin Hornet Community Center on July 6th. The second night on July 7th at 10 will be the finals of the tournament happening right here in London at the London Music Hall. The added bonus for both those shows is that former WWE wrestler and London's own Shawn Spears is going to be at those 2 shows. And we just heard Shawn's going to be also at AEW this weekend at Double or Nothing. So that's a huge grab for Smash Wrestling to have. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned all this, and especially with the Northern as well. Was it Matt Riddle that faced Mia Yim last year at the Northern?
That is correct, and he's coming out to NXT right now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm watching NXT on the background here, and it's got looks like Matt Riddle and Johnny Gargano. There's some more Smash name for you, but to take on, I think they're taking on Undisputed Era coming up, but it's absolutely amazing to see some of the transition and the progress some of these guys make, going from the Canadian indie scene, maybe in between pro stops, to now all of a sudden Johnny Wrestling is tag team of Matt Riddle, who both guys are Smash, names. Johnny, and like I said, I never was part of watching Smash back then, but he was. You said he was champion as long as Tyson Dukes was, eh?
Yeah, over 430 plus days.
And here he is, NXT champion on your TV right now. So it is kind of cool. As far as the shows that are coming up, the tag team tournament is going to be phenomenal. And I think I said this last week as well. As the fact is, decade ago, you never saw Ontario promotions interacting like this. So it is cool for the promotions themselves. It's amazing for the talent because they're getting the work, they're getting the exposure. And then again, for the fans and the companies and everything that goes along with it, it's like we're all winning in this case. With regards to the finals and everything else taking place here in London, I can't wait, because not only are we getting to see that, but we're also getting to see Shawn Spears make his return to London. It's been a long time coming. Shawn's one of the nicest guys, that I've ever heard about in the Ontario, independent circuit. So can't wait to see see him back in London. And basically the show's coming up June, July. They're just getting started for Smash. As a huge August coming up for them.
Yep. Finishing off July, Smash Wrestling is going back to Dresden on July 13th. That's part of their charity event set up by Jay Smith in support of the Dresden Junior Kings hockey team. Last year we had 20 tickets. We had 20 tickets again for this event, and we're just hoping to support the Junior Kings and get some good wrestling at the same time. So hit us up for any of those tickets. Whether you email me at scumbagswrestling@gmail.com or go to our Facebook page, we want to get a good group there and support Jay Smith and the hockey team. July 21st, New Kids on the Block. Not the band, it's the actual name of the next Smash Wrestling show, hitting the Tannery Event Center in Kitchener. That's Scott Hunter's stomping grounds. And then, as you alluded to, August is going to be huge because it's also SummerSlam weekend, but Smash is making their presence known, and they're going to be at the Midtown Event Theater in Toronto, and they're going to be there on the 7th for Smash versus Progress, and that's going to be at 8 o'clock, and that's actually a Wednesday. And then on Thursday, the 8th, WXW Ambition 11 at 4 p.m. Also on the 8th, Progress Wrestling is doing their show at 8 p.m. Then August 9th, WXW is going to have a show at 4 p.m., followed by Super Showdown 7 happening at Friday night at 8 p.m. August 9th. And then August 10th, The Summit, which includes Femme Fatales, Shimmer, and Rise, plus Smash Wrestling. They're having a 9 a.m. opening to meet and greet and do their show. All the promotions are going to have their own women's championships on the line, but the biggest news coming for that is the fact that Smash Wrestling is going to introduce their first ever women's champion for Smash Wrestling, and it's been decided that Rosemary will take on Casey Spinelli to determine the first champion. Your thoughts on Smash Wrestling having a women's title finally, even after years of saying we don't need one, and the thoughts of these two being chosen as the two being worthy of competing for it?
So first thing, I'll keep this PG, but about effing time there, Smash. As far as the two women goes, nothing but respect for both ladies. I mean, Rosemary, she's one of the best as far as Canadian independents go. And you watch her, pretty much every week on Impact Wrestling. Last night I was watching, I think, just clips of last week on Impact, and she was fighting Sue Young in a dog collar match, which was kind of cool. You know her backstory with Ali and the feud that they had, and then the Demon Bunny, association that the two of them had. So Rosemary's been around for a while. And then you've got basically the heart and soul of Ontario independent wrestling, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the females go, and that's Casey Spinelli. And obviously, she's got her not fascination, but she's got her affiliation with Sue Young as well, being the undead bride's maid of honor, isn't it?
Yes, but I believe she's one of the ones that has been rescued somehow or taken captive by Rosemary away from Sue Young.
She was, but then all of a sudden Sue Young rescued her back.
Oh, okay.
And then that's a lot. Yeah, that's the last I saw of that. But as far as these two go to crown the first ever women's champion, longevity, who deserves it most because of Rosemary's outside commitment, give it to the heart and soul, give it to Casey Spinelli. 2 scoops all the way for first ever women's champion. And you're talking about the other promotions and stuff like that. Pretty sure they announced Mercedes, if I can pronounce my daughter's name, I can't even say it. Mercedes Martinez coming in as far as I think is it Shimmer or Rise?
I believe it's Rise.
So she's coming in for Rise, and I've known about that lady for like ever. So to be able to see her live and in person is going to be absolutely phenomenal on the is the Saturday show or the Sunday show?
That is the Saturday morning.
The Saturday morning one.
AM.
Yeah, so it's
before people go to NXT.
Yeah, so I can't. I mean, August can't come soon enough, and it's like I said, it's going to be phenomenal to see Casey Spinelli win the championship. So, can't wait.
So yeah, that's some of the big news that's coming out of Smash Wrestling, and more details for all this can be found on their Facebook page or by going to smash-wrestling.com. Plus, we always keep you updated right here on the podcast or on our Facebook page, The Scumbags of Wrestling. So just a quick look at some of the goings on the independent scene throughout Ontario, not including Smash Wrestling. Um, Tomorrow night, there's a 19 plus event for fighting Filthy Tom Lawler, and that's happening at Leafs Palace in Toronto at 7 p.m. On Friday, PWA Wrestling is doing a show in Guelph at the Red Chevron Club. C4 presents the Filthy and the Fury Friday night fights. That's at the St. Anthony's Banquet Hall. I believe C4 is up in the Ottawa area. On Saturday, there's the Bridgeburg Brawl presented by Bordertown Pro Wrestling, and that's in Fort Erie at the Native Friendship Center. Doors open at 5 o'clock for that. Professional Championship Wrestling presents Rising Tide, the Royal Canadian Legion, and also PWA doing a show in Kitchener at the Alpine Club of Kitchener. On Sunday, of course, we know about the Smash Wrestling here in London for Smash at the London Music Hall, but there's also New School Wrestling in Hamilton at 12 p.m. Redemption, the BP Sports Park at 4 p.m. I believe that is also in Hamilton area. Alpha One Wrestling in Mortal Kombat 7 happening in Hamilton at 4 p.m. Queenston Road. And that concludes all the stuff that's happening around Ontario. There's so much going on. You can't miss having a show to see. So if you're not in London for Smash Wrestling, you can hit Hamilton and Toronto and Kitchener and Guelph, and you're not going to be disappointed either. Your thoughts on those coming up events, Chris?
Yeah, you just said it. I mean, there's no reason as a wrestling fan that you can't attend a wrestling show pretty much every weekend. A lot of promotions out there run 52 weeks a year seemingly. And you're right about C4, Capital City Championship Combat, I think, known as C4, but they run out of Ottawa. You've touched base a lot of times as far as the Scumbags, go as far as charities. And C4 does this thing called Fighting Back every single year, raise a lot of money for, I think it's cancer. And I think last year they had raised, I don't know if it was 10 grand or 50 grand, but it was quite a bit. Anytime I've ever talked to the promoter, very courteous, nice guy. But C4 to me is basically the Smash Wrestling at Ottawa. So I wouldn't mind getting up there someday to be able to check out one of their shows. But the fact is, you got the Man Lucha down this way. You've got PWA. You've got NSW. You've got All Egos promotion there, which A1 Wrestling. So again, like you said, you can't. There's no reason at all you have to miss. You can't attend a wrestling show because they're all over the place.
And that's the main thing. Like, these guys are busting their selves week in and week out, and they need the support. And independent wrestling is the hottest it's ever been, I think, right now. And so you owe it to yourself to check these guys out and throw them a bone and support. Speaking also of supporting, because like you said, we enjoy doing charity supports, and that brings me to Ethan's Fight. It's an independent wrestling show happening here in London at Montcalm Secondary School on Sunday, June 23rd. And that is going to start at 4 p.m. And some of the matches that have been announced, just earlier, a couple minutes ago, actually, about an hour ago, there's a fatal four-way match with the women, including Crystal Moon, Sabrina Kyle, Jessie Mack, and London's own Violet Lee. There's going to be a 20-person battle royal. Also, Carter Mason against Cody Diener in the main event, and Tyson Duke's factory student Kyle Boone is going to take on heavyweight Jake Jones. So the card is shaping up. We have a 10-pack of tickets already. We want to get more there, and support this. Ethan's a little boy who's 6 years old, who ended up with cancer in his brain and had down to his spinal fluids. They ended up doing as much as they could to get rid of the masses, but they didn't get it all, and that's all they could do really here in Canada. He was accepted into a program down in Nashville, Tennessee, and he's down there with his mom, but she's had to give up her jobs, and the cost of medical in the United States is quite pricey in itself. So every little bit to help this family would be greatly appreciated. And you can do your part by being at Ethan's fight at Montcalm Secondary Steel, June 23rd. And tickets, I believe, are $20 for VIP and $15 for general admission. Can't go wrong, and have some great wrestling action and give back at the same time. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, coolest thing about that is the fact is you've got Cody Deaner in the main event, which says enough as it is. Cody's huge as far as you said last week, charity work goes and stuff like that. Sad for the reason why this show is taking place, because of the little boy going through what he's going through. But it's a well worth cause if you can make it out on June 23rd to Montcalm. To help support his fight. I read the backstory about this, and the mom having to quit her job and this and that, and doing everything she can to try to make ends meet. And if you know anything at all about the U.S. Healthcare system, everything, if you go down there for treatment of any sorts, it's all out of pocket. So it's a little $20 amount to you. Isn't going to make a huge, difference to your bank account, but it's going to make quite a bit of difference to try to help this boy recover and live a better life. So yeah, definitely going to be there on June 23rd.
Excellent. Same here. So that's going to be a huge charity event. I think Montcalm, if they're doing in the big gym, there's plenty of room for people. There's the bleachers, and you don't want to miss it. Let's move on to other exciting news that's going to happen this weekend, and that's the launching of AEW. For months now, since January 1st, it's been more of a thought and a concept, and as people have said, a t-shirt company. I even have an AEW t-shirt myself, thanks to our friends over at Everything Pro Wrestling. I won a Royal Rumble tournament thing, and got a t-shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees, and I chose the AEW one. So AEW is presenting Double or Nothing from Las Vegas this Saturday. And before that, there was a couple of things that popped up this week, such as Pac and Hangman Page. That's off the card because of creative differences. I guess Pac wants to protect his reputation and the title that he owns with Dragon's Gate, and so he doesn't want to end up losing. And AEW obviously wants to make Hangman Page seem special, and obviously things didn't come together. So that's off the card. We also have it's Sean Spears, London's own. He was announced yesterday as joining AEW, and he's going to be part of the Casino Battle Royal. And also, they announced today during the last installment of Road to AEW, or the Double or Nothing, was the fact that the winner of the Casino Battle Royal will meet the winner of Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega at a future date to determine the first ever AEW World Heavyweight Champion. So just on those three topics, what do you think of that before we look at the actual card?
Pac's being Pac. That's all I got to say about that one. As far as Sean Spears goes, I can't wait to see him back in the ring. When he was in WWE, obviously, it never comes down to money in that company. It just comes down to passion. I think he lost his passion being beside Cody again. And I think their ties go all the way back to OVW. It'll be good for him, just based on the fact that he can have fun again. He can be himself again. He doesn't have to worry about the storylines and scripts and everything Cody is promising right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Peyton Royce, because obviously they are, fiancés. Whether or not she travels down that road as well, because you think about it, the Iconics, yes, they're great, but was she really being used to her full potential before that? Probably not. And the women's division, as far as AEW goes, they're building, and they're doing a good job at that. And the more talent that basically is available, the more they're going to pick up. I know Tennille Dashwood, I think, is a free agent at this point, so wouldn't surprise me to see her go down there. I was just watching NXT right now. Adam Cole's in partially the main event, and his girlfriend's down in AEW. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Another billionaire running a company. And as far as the main event goes, to see to crown the new champion, I'd love to see Omega in that main event. Whether or not he takes it, I don't know. But I think AEW is doing everything right now. And we'll have to wait and see what happens this weekend with StarCast and AEW, and see what kind of buzz they draw this time.
Yeah, it's interesting. During that final Road to Double or Nothing, Tony Khan is interviewed, I think is by somebody from ITV over in the UK. And I'm hoping that they hold true to what they're kind of saying, is that they still want to encourage people to watch any and all wrestling. They're not trying to apparently take away from what WWE has. They just want to present the alternative that has been lacking to the lapsed fan, and the fan who wants a little more harder core wrestling, some blood, and not necessarily gushing for no apparent reason, but allowed because it happens, and just more realism, I guess. And that also takes you to sort of the Cody Rhodes Dustin match, where Cody doesn't want to be brother versus brother. He wants it more of an era versus era, because he hates the Attitude Era that people hold so dear to themselves for everything that they did. So let's run down the card. We got Best Friends, Chuck Taylor and Trent Barreta taking on Angelico and Jack Evans.
As far as this goes, Best Friends, from watching their days in New Japan Pro Wrestling, they're a gimmick, and I don't think they're going to pull this one out. I think if anything at all, you'll see them feud in AEW. People know them as the Best Friends, but I think they'll end up losing this one.
Okay, there's also a 6-woman tag team match, including Aja Kong and Yuka Sakazaki, Emi Sakura taking on Shida, Rio, and Mizunami. Sorry if I'm butchering names, because I'm not familiar with them. But I did say earlier that Aja Kong is about the only one I definitely do recognize from a Survivor Series back in the 90s. So she's been around for a little while. What are you thinking with the 6-woman tag?
Just based on the fact I haven't a freaking clue who 5 of the participants are in this, I'm going to go with Aja Kong's team.
Same here. Kip Saban is going to take on Sammy Guevara in a singles match.
So Sammy, I don't know how familiar you are with him, but he a lot of potential. He's a good worker. A lot of very similar to MJF in as far as his attitude goes. Just a little more cockier though. He does have the potential to be somebody, a big name for AEW. So I can't see with their first pay-per-view him losing. So I got to say Sammy in this one.
Okay, yeah, I would pick Sammy in that one. I don't think I gave you my predictions on the Best Friends, so I'm going to go with actually Best Friends to retain, or sorry, just be the winners. I do like your idea of them teasing some dissension just to help build storyline along the way. They got a little bit to go before October when they launch their TV show on TNT. So it'd be interesting to see how if they build to what you're suggesting as a way of launching their new show. Also in the pre-show is the 21-man casino battle royale, and they have some interesting rules that are going to happen where every 3 minutes, 5 new people are going to come in, and the last person to come in is just going to come in individually. The winner of that is going to meet the winner of Omega and Jericho somewhere down the line. Could be when they launch on TNT, as well as like their big show to wow everybody. But that battle royal includes Sonny Kiss, Brandon Cutler, Ace Romero, Glacier, if you believe it, from WCW fame, Brian Pillman Jr., Sunny Days, MJF, Joey Janella, Dustin Thomas, Billy Gunn, Jimmy Havoc, Jungle Boy, Mark Quinn, Luchasaurus, Sean Spears, and there's still space for 4 other guys to be a part of. Do you see anybody from that list winning it or being one of the to be announced guys?
You know, it's funny, on the last show we're talking about this, and I made a prediction, and then all of a sudden now I'm realistically thinking about who's in that battle royal. You know, I'd love to see Sean Spears come back and win it. I think that'd be cool, but I can't see him being thrust into the main event picture that soon. Other than that, as far as who's going to win it based on storylines, everything else goes, I see MJF. So that's my prediction right there. When he was in London for Smash, I hated the guy. He was a, you know, character-wise, he was you know, just arrogant, and you could tell he knew his character and how to, you know, play the fans and everything else. But when you see his series with regards to Cody and the Being the Elite stuff and everything that went along with that, you saw how much more of a dickhead he could be. So anyways, MJF with the winner of the Battle Royal, and you know, doing that, it's basically he goes on to get a championship, and there's nothing AEW management can do about it. So I see MJF winning.
Yeah, that would go well with the storylines that they've been doing on Being the Elite. Another guy that stands out to me is Joey Janella. He actually contended for the Smash Wrestling Championship when he took a space to go against Tarek, and Tarek ended up winning. Janella's coming back from a leg injury that he suffered. But yeah, MJF, of the people who are listed, Jimmy Havoc is a possibility. But we also did talk about one of those surprise guys. Could a surprise be Jon Moxley? But you gotta have somebody who wins that battle royal and is a contender to go against somebody on the same level as a Kenny Omega or Chris Jericho.
So to change my theory from the last podcast we had done, I just want to say this. So do you waste Jon Moxley's debut in a battle royal, if that's the case might be, or do you bring him in to basically go and ruin the main event between Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho, knowing that both Jericho and himself are former WB talent, and have him pull a Jericho and have him interfere in that match? And now all of a sudden, as opposed to the battle royal winner against maybe, Omega or Jericho, it's like have a 3-way between Moxley, Omega, and Jericho now to decide who's going to face the battle royal winner.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that way, because at the same time, as you were saying, do you waste a debut of a Jon Moxley or a return of a CM Punk as one of those to be announced people, when at the same time this is listed as the pre-show? That'd be kind of a waste of somebody of their caliber to put on a pre-show. So it has to be somebody like an MJF or Joey Janela winning to go against Omega or Jericho.
Yeah, I love the fact you're referencing Punk, but the last I heard, he didn't look too good. He wrestled under a mask in a Chicago arena that was, I guess, apparently shutting down, and he was about the size of James Ellsworth now. So putting him in there and having fans try to recognize him in 2019, it's not a good thing. I mean, if he's a commentator, much the same way Colt Cabana does for ROH, no big deal. But putting him in the ring again, and again, does he have any interest to be back in the ring as a wrestler?
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one, because his size has diminished as he's joined the ranks of the MMA world, and he is only a few hours, minutes, depending on how quick a chartered plane is from where Double or Nothing is, because he's supposed to be commentating for an MMA show also on that day. So that's why people are saying, oh, no, he won't show up. He won't show up. But look at All In. Jericho did 2 Fozzy shows and was able to run in on the Omega match. So you never know. It is wrestling. Whether it's WWE or not, you can never say never. But he'll have to bulk up a bit just to be believable again as that big contender. So pulling from this, I'm going to go with Joey Janella winning the Battle Royal, and you're saying MJF?
Yep, MJF is my pick for this one.
Perfect. Then there's the women's three-way. There's Britt Baker, Nyla Rose, and Kylie Ray going at it, and that's in triple threat rules.
So my pick on that one?
Yeah.
Britt Baker's hot, so I got to go with her. Don't get me wrong. She's also gifted, but she's incredibly attractive. Good job, Adam Cole.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this is strictly going to be a triple threat match. I could see it possibly becoming a 4-way because there is a missing AEW female star that's not listed anywhere in this card, and that being Allie, or whatever she's going to go by, whether it's Cherry Bomb or anything like that, because she's been using the Cherry Bomb name lately. But regardless of who she wants to go by, she's not on this card, and she's AEW.
I was just going to say that kind of surprised me that she's nowhere listed.
Yeah, so I could almost see her being a last-minute addition, or I would agree that Britt Baker wins, and this could be where then Allie comes in and confronts her.
But the other option is, too, who's to say Allie's not part of that Battle Royal? I mean, wasn't it last year that when they did All In, Jordan Grace was part of it, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was part of that. One of the only females in there, I believe.
Yeah, but I mean, the good news is we're chatting with the fact is there's options, which is a good thing as far as a beginning company goes.
Exactly. So I'm going with Britt Baker as well. SoCal Uncensored, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky taking on the Strong Hearts. That's Seema, T-Hawk, and Linda Man. So what do you see in this 6-man that involves Oriental Wrestling?
Entertainment. OWE. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was right. OWE. You're not going to bring Seema in with the hype that he was presented with and not have him go over in the first match. So what the name of the group, what did you call them?
They're called the Strong Hearts.
All right, so the Strong Hearts to go over in this one. SCU is already established. There's no reason at all for them to win this. So again, look for Seema and his boys to go over in this one, just to be able to for AEW to be able basically be like, hey, these are guys, they're established, and you'll see a few continue down the road though.
Yeah, and they set this up during that one press conference in Vegas. And so I could see this continuing as well, and Strong Hearts to win. Cody versus Dustin, brother versus brother. They wanted it for a while. They almost had it at WrestleMania, but Vince never pulled the trigger. He actually had them then as tag teams instead. And I still remember when they teamed up as brothers and had Dusty in their corner, and they took out the Shield. And to have them now against each other in Cody's own company, what do you see happening?
It depends. Mainly on the fact of who's the heel and who's the face. If Dustin is the face in this one, expect him to go over. if Dustin, and it's I'm saying that because it's hard to tell by the face paint and the character and what he's going to portray this coming Saturday. But if Cody is the face in this one, I expect Cody to go over, but Dustin to kind of probably, beat the crap out of him post match or whatever the case may be. The reason I'm saying this is because if you see Dustin as the face and Cody playing the heel, it's going to be, Cody's thinking, oh, well, hey, I'm going to change this attitude era and everything else. And then all of a sudden Dustin's just like, nope, not happening. And, Cody ends up losing to the point he gets frustrated. I see a feud continuing between these guys. But like I said, if Dustin is playing the face in this one, I see him going over Cody. And like I said, a feud continuing down the road.
Yeah, I can see Dustin being the face in this one because he's representing the Attitude Era, and Cody wants to sort of destroy that. I guess it'll just depend on how the fans accept it at the same time, because if they're on the side of Cody, where they're against the Attitude Era and what it stood for, then obviously Cody would be favored by the fans. But I think he's still going to be playing the heel, sort of cockiness, and just to say he's better. But I think Cody kind of does need to win just to sort of prove that the new way is going to be better than WWE or the beloved Attitude Era. So I'm picking Cody regardless of how it goes. I definitely am looking forward to that match because I've been a huge mark for Dustin since I saw him first appear in 1990 on Saturday Night's Main Event, and then teaming with his dad as his dad was leaving at the Royal Rumble against Ted DiBiase and Virgil. So, yeah, whether he's the Natural or Gold Dust, just as long as he's not 7, I'm a Dustin Rhodes fan, and he's been clean and sober, he said, just this past week for 11 years. So it's really good on him.
Cool thing. Well, I was gonna say, cool thing about Dustin as well is the tremendous shape he's still in for being up there in age.
Yeah, he's dropped a lot of weight lately and even had double knee surgery. But this is sort of him coming back out and saying, "I'm in the best shape of my life." And it's interesting that he was given a release by WWE. I guess it was all due to Triple H allowing him to be released and join Cody for this match in AEW. So that brings us on to the main event of the evening. And there's a lot at stake in a way because it's a number 1 contendership now, where Kenny Omega is taking on Chris Jericho. Your thoughts?
I wish I could pass on this because I'm a huge mark for both of them. Different eras, obviously, but you know what? It's interesting to see Jericho still in that main event picture this many years later. I mean, but at the same time, if 2019, I got to go with Omega. Jericho, I see him. It's always best when you have the old wrestling saying that we have a heel that chases that title. So he never necessarily gets it right away, but he chases, and all of a sudden, he's going and basically going out of his way as far as tactics go to try to win that championship or to try to hurt the champ or whatever the case may be. I think because of the success that all AEW has already had, just based on mainly one show and a lot of hype on the internet. And the Being the Elite series, obviously, like, let it happen that, Kenny Omega, one of those, original BTE guys, is, the first ever champion of the promotion. So in order for that to happen, he's got to beat Jericho. So I'm picking Omega to beat Jericho in this one.
I'll go with Omega as well. And yeah, it should be a good match either way. They've always had good chemistry together since they first encountered each other in New Japan. And that was like one of the highlights of why I watched a New Japan show when on my way to see them go against each other. Plus, Kenny Omega is coming to London for London Comic Con the first weekend in October, which I believe is the 6th and 7th at the London Convention Center, and it was just announced that you can be a part of a special VIP meet and greet with Kenny and do video game challenge with him, and that's open to like 50 plus people. It's $230, I believe, with plus tax. You get autographs, you get pictures of your action with Kenny. There's pop and pizza going on, and there's also an ability for $75 a person to, and 75 people at the same time can just watch everything unfold between Kenny and the people who challenge him at the video game challenge and VIP. You'll also get the autographed picture that's pre-signed because he doesn't have time to sign for everybody, but you get be a part of the experience. And you can go to londoncomiccon.ca for more details and to buy your tickets. Comic-Con is also going to be the place where you can meet up with Tim Curry, and fans of any movie should have seen Tim Curry at least once in their life, whether it was from Sylvester Stallone's Oscar, Home Alone 2, Pennywise the Clown in the original It presentation, Rocky Horror Picture Show, and so many more acting credits that Tim Curry has. You don't want to miss the opportunity to see him. And he's coming to London Comic Con October 6th and 7th at the London Convention Center. So, got a plug out there for Jake and London Comic Con. They've had a great relationship with Smash Wrestling and bringing the Canusa Classic to us last year. And if they continue with a good relationship with Kenny Omega, and I believe Barry Bloom is his agent, you might be able to bring in more stars from AEW, and who knows, maybe in 2020, instead of a Smash show, we get an AEW show. Your thoughts, Chris?
The coolest part about all that as well, you get to see a bunch of people dressed up as stormtroopers and robots and stuff. So I remember going to the Smash show last year for Canusa and getting there, and they had the bleachers set up, as they're doing the kind of the Q&As with the Smash people right before the event. And I remember standing up on the bleachers and just looking into that mass of people at the Comic-Con and be like, holy crap, like this is insane. And just doing like a lap around it's huge. I mean, just the amount of work and effort that goes into this, as far as Jake and Andrew goes, is absolutely insane. And Jake, from talking to him, it makes it sound like it's just second nature, but to land a guy like Kenny Omega, absolutely insane, especially right now. Like, he was PWI's number one in the top 500 last year. He is the first guy ever to score 6-star matches against Okada for Meltzer's review system. He's Winnipeg's own. He's, been talked about pretty much every month of the year for the past several years. He's one of the best. And the fact is that they're bringing him in and being this close to him, being able to play video games with him, and he's a video game mark, is absolutely cool. As far as Tim Curry goes, you mentioned it. The only movie I've ever actually seen him in was Home Alone 2. And he's that son of a bitch bellhop who, is just, he's got that look on his face. Like, you just want to hate the guy. He could have been a wrestler. But anyways, and when I talk about Comic-Con, people at work or friends of mine and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, and I mark out about Kenny Omega, they're like, oh, Tim Curry's coming too. And I've heard things on FM 96 about, the announcers marking out for Tim Curry. So, great job for these guys to be able to bring these celebrities in. And it's like you said, we get Smash Wrestling and Canusa, but if they keep and maintain a good relationship with Omega and his agent, who's to say we don't get an AEW show here in London? And, that would be phenomenal.
Exactly. And Kenny's coming at a perfect time, as the fact is AEW is supposed to be starting their new TV series on TNT. Yet to have a home in Canada determined yet, but they're supposed to start in the fall of this year, 2019. So we'll be getting close to doing their events and TV tapings. So perfect time to advertise and meet Kenny Omega as they get ready to launch their own show. So looking at other activity happening this weekend in Las Vegas, starting tomorrow, May 23rd until the 26th, is StarCast 2. It's presented by Conrad Thompson, and he did StarCast 1 at in Chicago as part of All In as well. Of course, a lot of people don't believe that they're two separate entities between AEW and Double or Nothing. And StarCast. But, they're good friends with each other, so why not piggyback off each other? And it's virtually a who's who of events that are going to happen during StarCast. Just to mention some of it, there's an evening with Cody and the Young Bucks, Behind the Paint with Sting, hosted by Tony Schiavone, a live Talk is Jericho, the Sharpshooter, Bret Hart in his own words. I guess they're going to also have, what's his name? Tom
McGee,
yes. Tom McGee is going to be there, and they're going to talk about that lost gem of a match that WWE actually finally released on the network last week. Lita has a panel on women's wrestling. There's the Double or Nothing official weigh-ins. The last time you're probably going to see something to wrestle with live with Bruce Pritchard, because Bruce has returned to WWE and won't have the travel schedule to do stuff with Conrad Thompson. There's a live Wrestler Observer show with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. The Hall of Fame with Booker T. Crazy Like a Fox, remembering Brian Pillman, who actually would have turned 57 today. 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff. An I Quit retrospective hosted by Tony Schiavone with Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA. The Art of Wrestling with Colt Cabana. There's the Monday Night Wars stories with X-Pac, and probably Kevin Nash and Scott Hall are going to be part of it. Joey Bryan has a show. There's Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn doing a show together. Remembering Owen Hart has just been added. I see here that's going to happen at 6:30 tomorrow. And the House of Hardcore podcast with Tommy Dreamer, Keeping It 100 with Conan. First public appearance by Arn Anderson since leaving WWE. There's going to be now a Ready to Rumble watch-along with Tony Schiavone, David Arquette, and the Hurricane, because Hurricane was the stunt double for David Arquette, plus a whole lot more happening during, also a broadcast of Omega Man, the documentary on Kenny Omega. But all this is going to happen during StarCast 2, and both StarCast and Double or Nothing are going to be available on FITE, F-I-T-E, network, FITETV.com app on your phones, and they're a little expensive, but with the quality you're going to get and the content, it's definitely worth checking out and see if you can match up with some friends and share the cost. Thoughts on any of those shows, Chris?
Yeah, I'm intrigued about the Remembering Owen Hart one. Do we know, do they say anything at all who's hosting?
No, it just says it's happening at Caesar's Palace. I'm trying to get some details, but it is quite the timing. I imagine there will be something involving probably, I would say, obviously Brett, since he's going to be there. And I would also suspect that JR and the King, since they're going to have their own show, that they're going to be a part of it, because they were broadcasting that night at Over the Edge in 99.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things that stand out. Obviously, being Canadian, the sharpshooter thing with Brett, and now you mentioned the Owen thing. Omega Man, is that what Omega's thing was called? Omega Man?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's the documentary.
I watched that on TSN already, but it's cool for the fans there in Vegas to be able to watch that there. I mean, Bruce Pritchard, the guy, here's the thing, okay? Last year we were doing this, podcast, and Sean had this fascination with Bruce Pritchard, and I was like, okay, what the hell is this crap? And when All In was taking place in Starcast 1, and Sean was like, well, yeah, people want to come over and watch it over here, they can. And I was like, I'm not going over there to watch 24/7 Bruce Pritchard. No way, no way. And anyways, but when you actually watch him interact from the last Starcast, and you listen to his shows, you realize that personality he's got. Like he's one of those guys in the business that has no fear. It's funny how you mentioned the fact that with regards to AEW has no affiliation with Starcast, and yet they pull The Undertaker and Kurt Angle, but they're, and I'm not going to say they, but Vince McMahon is picky and choosy, because here you've got Bruce Pritchard, a WWE employee, Hurricane, who I believe is a WWE employee, who are allowed to go to Starcast, no problem at all. But when it comes to Kurt Angle, no longer wrestling, and The Undertaker rarely wrestling, it's like, nope, you guys aren't going, because AEW and Starcast are one and the same. So it's interesting to see who McMahon is letting go, and it will go to this, and who he's blocking from going to this. So I'm sure if anything at all during the Starcast, you're going to see some of these guys take shots at AEW, or not AEW, but these guys take shots at WWE. I was just thinking AEW, when the Hall of Fame ceremony happened and DX was a part of that, Billy Gunn, AEW had no problems at all letting Billy Gunn go be part of this. And now all of a sudden Vince McMahon being Vince McMahon is doing his thing. So it'll be interesting to see what the highlights are going to be this weekend, but it's also going to be interesting to see, like I said, the backlash that comes from this, from either the WWE side or AEW.
Yeah, I find it interesting as I'm scrolling through the list again. There's an Inside the Ropes with Dustin Rhodes, but the thing, unfortunately, that seems to be missing is the fact that there was 2 shows involving Ric Flair that aren't happening any, or at least not listed any longer, because JR was supposed to do a sit down with Ricky Steamboat and Rick, talking about their famous 3-bout series, especially their third and final bout. And there was supposed to be a roast of Ric Flair. And, well, he just had surgery. It was successful, but there had been conflicting reports, shall we say, on the extent of complications that happened and postponement of surgeries. But apparently it happened on Monday, finally, and he was successful. So we wish Rick all the best in his recovery. But it's noticeably missing from here, and that's where things like remembering Owen Hart and the addition of the Ready to Rumble watch along are brand new additions that I've seen since the last look at the list of events.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see if there's any more change-ups, but that's, it makes sense that JR is going to be doing the Owen Hart thing at this point now, but that itself is going to be emotional.
Yeah, well, he was there when it happened. If people get a chance to check out Post Wrestling, John Pollock did an amazing job doing an audio documentary, contacting people who were close to the situation with Owen, including a fan who was sort of his Uber driver, Jimmy Corderas, and a few others that he reached out to. And just to know all the sort of behind the scenes that nobody knew before is quite the shocking and sad rehash of what happened. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But yeah, it's great to see that that's happening as a last minute replacement for something. And so we'll, I guess, transition into talking about Owen and the fact that 20 years tomorrow on May 23rd was the Over the Edge pay-per-view, and it happened in the Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri. And Owen Hart was scheduled to come down from the rafters as the Blue Blazer. There's talk that Max Mini was going to be a mini Blue Blazer, but he was going to win the Intercontinental title against the Godfather. And they just finished a hardcore match, needed to clean up the ring. So to do so, they had a pre-recorded interview with the Blue Blazer and I believe it was Kevin Kelly. But when the interview was done, they didn't show anything in the ring. They showed JR, and he said something terribly had gone wrong, and that Owen was supposed to make an entrance, but he fell. They went to something else. By that time, Owen was out of there, taken to the hospital, obviously pronounced dead. Jimmy Corderas had gone with him. And 10 seconds before they went back to JR, because they continued the show, JR got notified that Owen died. He had like 10 seconds to process it and then look at the camera and tell everybody that unfortunately Owen had passed away.
Hey, Sean, you okay if I play that audio?
Yeah, go for it.
Here in Kansas City, tragedy befell the World Wrestling Federation and all of us. Owen Hart was set to make an entrance from the ceiling, and he fell from the ceiling. And I have the unfortunate responsibility to let everyone know that Owen Hart has died. Owen Hart has tragically died from that accident here tonight.
So
yeah,
I was just going to say, with you saying what you just said, I just want to give fans a glimpse of exactly what JR had to say the moment that, they were counting him down.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that he had like zero prep. Obviously, in the back of his mind, he's thinking that maybe this did happen because he saw it. Like, he was literally only feet away from the ring and seeing Owen fall. But they also still continued with their job. And then he had to quickly scramble in his mind to come up with that statement. So kudos for him to remain professional for the whole thing to go with. But there, in that documentary that John Pollock did, somebody questioned whether they should have continued, because at the same time, it's sort of a crime scene at that point. But sort of the acting, the show business type mentality, the show must go on. It did go on, and they continued the show, even if some people didn't want to go out. Jeff Jarrett was very emotional as he went to do his promo and do his match. Deborah was obviously visibly crying during that promo as well. So it was a huge night, and they ended up retiring that name of Over the Edge because of the stigma that was attached to it. So my question to you, Chris, is where were you when it happened? And what are your thoughts on the fact that JR made that statement, that how he had little time, and should they have carried on with the show? So, like, 3 questions, I know, but your thoughts on that whole situation.
So as far as where I was in London, not ordering the pay-per-view, and then I caught wind of what had happened, so ordered the replay. And then, very next night, I remember, the tribute show and maybe possibly shedding a few tears. With regards to the show going on, I think that was one of the biggest backlashes about it. Was the fact is it's to me it shouldn't have gone on. I don't know if it was in the post show or it was another show that I was listening to, but somebody had raised the question that they should have asked Vince McMahon. They should have been like, look, if that had been Shane McMahon, would you have stopped this show? And they one of their biggest regrets, whoever that guy was, that didn't. It might have been Jeff Merrick, but I'm not quite sure. But it's if it had been, like I said, Shane McMahon in that situation, of course he would have stopped the show. And you never think about when you're watching as a wrestling fan with regards to what you see and all the legal ramifications that go along with it. It's like, yes, it had turned into a crime scene at that point, so they should have shut down the show and done as much as they possibly could to figure out what the hell happened. As far as some of the stuff you didn't even think about was 2 clips from the post-wrestling thing that I had heard. Number one was apparently Max Mini was supposed to come down with them, and there was too many issues with the weight, and they, I guess, apparently had tried sandbags and stuff, and it just wasn't happening. And so Max Mini life was saved because of them go in a different route. The other thing was as well is when you hear Jimmy Corderas talk and you hear about how close Owen was to landing on him on the way down, like it could have just been, not necessarily Owen landing right on top of him, but it could have been Owen's, arm had come down on top of him or something like that. Because Jimmy in the post show had said he felt something brush against him. And then, Jimmy, from the rest of the audio, you could tell he's just in a state of shock. And he still, to this day, doesn't remember how he got to the next town the very next day. So obviously he has taken that and put a permanent, blank on the situation. I don't know how he gets through, still being part of the wrestling business on Aftermath every single week. But, he's very gifted human being to be able to share the story that he's been able to share as far as anytime anybody asks him about Owen. But again, Owen was one of those guys whose legacy is going to live on forever based on the stories you hear about him. And of all people, JR is saying that he, to this day, has still never heard anything bad about Owen. So it's hard. Like I said in the other show that we had done, it's hard to believe 20 years later, it seems like just yesterday.
Yeah, I was celebrating my 23rd birthday with our friend Chris Jones and having pizza, and that's happened. It was just like, oh my God, shock. And then seeing the rest of the show and waiting for some more news. And that's what it became more so than watching it for the rest of the card, which I couldn't even tell you unless I look it up on Wikipedia. I couldn't tell you what happened before or after on that event. And unfortunately at the same time, that section has been taken out of the network presentation. Just a lot of thoughts on Owen, his whole career. I liked him as the Blue Blazer when he first appeared before WrestleMania 5 and took on Kurt Hennig in a losing effort. Then when he came to team with Coco Beware and High Energy, which actually that was after the new foundation with Jim Neidhart, and they wore the baggy pants and all that, and then Coco got added when Jim left, to winning the King of the Ring to prove his brother wrong, kicking Brett's leg out from under him in their match against the Quebecers at the Royal Rumble 94, starting WrestleMania 10, the steel cage in 94 as well. Just so many things. His goofing around with Davey Boy Smith, the last match recognition by Edge, saying that they used a napkin as a clothesline with Jeff Jarrett against Edge and Christian. Just all the fun things that Owen did away from the camera and just to crack people up. The guy's going to be missed. I believe I have a picture somewhere of Owen in a frame holding his son Oj from Canadian Stampede that happened in Calgary. That 10-man tag and the Hart clan all got in the ring. Just so many memories. Any more memories you want to share before we give her last props to Owen?
Yeah, just one of the personal stories I can share is I only got to see him wrestle twice live. One of them was in my hometown of St. John, New Brunswick. It was funny because the main event was him and Yokozuna as tag team champions against Shawn Michaels and Lex Luger. And the best part I remember about that match is Yoko uncontrollably laughing in the corner, having to stick his head in a turnbuckle because Owen was making fun of a drunk fan ringside, and it wasn't like just a normal drunk fan. It was like some older guy who's just completely, messed up, and Owen was just having a field day with this guy. But anyways, it was amazing interaction, and it was just Owen being playful and the whole thing you're talking about, the napkin at the house show and everything else. And it's just, to me, that sounds like who he was as an individual. He liked to have fun in life, and when you hear about stories and stuff, you hear about he was one of the guys you could talk to, if you needed to, and definitely family man and stuff. And a lot of his matches, are on the network or YouTube. And if you're too young to remember who he was, go and check them out, because he Back in the day, he was one of the most gifted athletes, and he had a Japanese style before Japanese wrestling was famous over here in North America. But definitely going to be missed. And I think Cody Deaner just recently had tripped it out to Alberta and got to see the Hart House, and had gone to Owen Hart's gravesite just recently. So, I mean, and so Deaner, being one of the mainstays here in Ontario indie, was a fan of Owens as well. And it's a respect thing. And I can't say I've ever heard, any wrestling fan be like, oh man, he sucks outside the gimmick, but it's definitely missed even 20 years later.
Yep. Is Daniel still a part of the chat? And we can ask him his thoughts.
Apparently somebody else had signed up and said AEW. Signed up as AEW, said, "Are you all in? Who isn't going to WWE Saudi? WWE Saudi is joke." And then he goes on to say, "Glad Ric Flair is okay." So
well, thank you for your input. Give me a shout out, but I don't know who you are. Conrad Cushman from Everything Pro Wrestling. He does his own podcast over on Anchor out of New York. He posted on our talk, and he said, Owen Hart was a good performer. I think he has the best opening match of WrestleMania all time, and he's one of the best not to win the WWF title. And I would definitely concur with Conrad on that one. And unfortunately, due to how his death tore the Hart family apart and the circumstances involving it, Martha Hart received $18 million for compensation, but won't share memories of Owen with the rest of the world and allow Owen to be inducted into WWE Hall of Fame, no matter how much Bret Hart wants him to. So as Chris said, find any outlet that you can, social media or the WWE network, to create your own memories of Owen Hart.
Yeah, nothing from Daniel as of right now, but he went on to say earlier that the Scumbags will run wild at Ethan's fight.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. So moving on to WWE. Last weekend was Money in the Bank. Quick rundown. The Usos defeated Dan O'Brien and Eric Rowan in a non-title match. Bayley won the Money in the Bank ladder match for the women, defeating Carmella, Dana Brooke, Ember Moon, Mandy Rose, Naomi, Natalya, and Nikki Cross, who was replacing Alexa Bliss. Rey Mysterio beat Samoa Joe for the United States Championship, even though Joe's shoulder wasn't down. He was cut open, so they kind of quit that match early. Shane McMahon slipped out of his t-shirt to escape the cage and defeat The Miz in a steel cage match. Tony Nese defeated Ariya Daivari to retain the Cruiserweight Championship. Becky Lynch defeated Lacey Evans by submission with the Disarmer. And as she tried to leave, Charlotte came down and said, nope, she wants her match now. So she ended up beating Becky for the SmackDown Women's Championship, thanks to some outside interference by Lacey Evans. They started a beatdown of Becky. Bayley came down, rescued Becky, and decided to cash in on Charlotte. She succeeded, and so Becky is still Raw Women's Champion, and Bayley is your SmackDown Women's Champion. Then Roman Reigns defeated Elias in 10 seconds because Elias tried doing performance and leave. He got a Superman punch and a spear, over and done with 10 seconds. Match of the night, Seth Rollins defeated AJ Styles for the Universal Championship. Kofi Kingston defeated Kevin Owens to retain the WWE Championship. And Brock Lesnar surprised everybody by taking the 8th and final spot in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Earlier in the evening, Sami Zayn was beat up and hung by his ankles and was taken out of the match. Braun Strowman claimed it wasn't him, tried to get the spot back. Triple H didn't believe him and said, that's not happening. You are out of the match. and they never announced an 8th person, so it was 7 people, being Ali, Andrade, Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre, Finn Balor, Randy Orton, and Ricochet, until the last couple seconds of the match, where Brock Lesnar stormed the ring, pushed over a ladder, pushed down Ali off a ladder, and took the case for himself. And now they're teasing when he can cash in, and he'll come and go, and it could be on Kofi, could be on Seth. We might hear this Monday when that's going to happen. So that was the rundown of Money in the Bank leading into Raw. Chris, I know you only caught part of Money in the Bank, the second half of it, but from what you heard and saw, what do you think of Money in the Bank?
I know, like you just said, I end up catching part of it just due to work commitments and stuff like that. But I caught the tail end of the Seth Rollins AJ Styles match. That was, in so many words, phenomenal. It was, from what I read, as far as the internet reports and stuff like that goes, is the match was just a good match. There wasn't no outside interference or just a good match between two gifted performers there. As far as the pay-per-view itself goes, I'm glad Bayley won. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with Becky and Lacey Evans at this point, because I know Lacey is still kind of saying, Becky, wherever you go, I'm going to follow you. Charlotte, Bayley, those two continue a feud, and hopefully Sasha Banks eventually comes back. Main event was interesting. I was watching it, and obviously my pick was Drew McIntyre to win it, and at one point it looked like Ali was going to win, and I was like, oh, this would be interesting to see what they do with this guy. And then sure enough, out of nowhere, Brock Lesnar. And I've said it already once tonight, but if you could judge the expression by one guy's face as far as Brock Lesnar winning goes, that would be Randy Orton. So if you get a chance, go on to YouTube with the WWE Network, watch Brock Lesnar winning, and then focus on Randy Orton's face as soon as he watches Brock Lesnar up at the top of the ladder celebrating. So again, pay-per-view, probably nothing more than a good setup to the Saudi show that's coming up, but it is WWE. So it doesn't surprise me them putting Brock Lesnar up top.
Okay. So WWE has 2 more events coming up. June 1st, so a week and a half from now, they are going to have NXT, and that's their 25th show, and it's going to happen from Bridgeport, Connecticut at the Webster Bank Arena. And just since we were watching NXT just a moment ago, writing down the card quickly, is going to be Matt Riddle versus Roderick Strong, Velveteen Dream against Tyler Breeze for the NXT North American Championship, Danny Burch, Only Lurkin, the Undisputed Era members Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, the Street Profits, and the Forgotten Sons are all going to be in a ladder match to determine the vacant NXT Tag Team Championships, as they were given up by the War Raiders, or Viking Raiders, however they want to be called. Shayna Baszler is going to defend the women's title against Io Shirai, and the NXT Championship is on the line with Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole.
So as far as, the standouts, NXT, this is 25, they called it, right?
Yes.
So 25th, takeover, so to speak. Adam Cole, I think, is going to take this one. Hopefully they finally move Johnny up to the main roster with Ciampa when he's back and healthy. I'm wondering if they're going to release the title to Io Shirai, or Shirai, however you pronounce it, with regards to maybe Shayna coming up, because they could use fresh blood into the women's picture at this point. And then the tag team war in a ladder match there to determine the new ones. I didn't realize how talented the Street Profits were until a couple weeks ago when I was watching them. But I wouldn't mind seeing the Street Profits go over in that match.
Yeah, I would go with the Forgotten Sons. It's interesting, though, that this is happening because, we can go into more detail next week's episode, but this is going to be an important one, as it's the takeover before Toronto during SummerSlam weekend, which we're going to go to. So it's definitely something to look forward to, as all NXT takeover events usually are. And it's interesting that this is happening on a weekend that doesn't have a WWE pay-per-view to piggyback off of and compare to. So it's spaced in between. And so we'll run down that card fully with predictions next week. And then also a couple days later on June 7th, everybody, with the exception of Daniel Bryan, Aleister Black, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens, are going to Saudi Arabia, and they're going to be at the King Abdullah International Stadium in Jeddah for Super Showdown 2019. That's scheduled to have a 50-man battle royal, Triple H versus Randy Orton, Goldberg versus Undertaker, Braun versus Bobby Lashley, Finn Balor defending the Intercontinental title against Andrade, Roman Reigns against Shane McMahon, and Kofi Kingston against Dolph Ziggler, who attacked Kofi this past week. So any thoughts on the guys who don't want to go to Saudi Arabia for Super Showdown, even though they're now announcing 50 people in a battle royal?
Sorry, learning this mic, so the mute button was on and I tried to talk. But anyways, as far as these shows go, I tend not to watch them. The main reasons being obviously the politics behind them. I will catch the highlights if there's a show not a show, but if there's a match that I'm looking forward to, I will tend to PVR and then find that match. But I mean, the last two shows, the only thing that's really interested me is the participants in the battle royals. Jericho obviously was in the first one. I think Hornswoggle might have been another one. The Great Khali, I think, had made a comeback for one of them. So it is interesting to see some of these past names come out. But as far as the stance of Aleister Black, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Daniel Bryan, good for them for sticking to their grounds and saying, I don't want to participate. Hopefully there's no repercussions. But when you talk about somebody like Aleister Black, what happens with somebody like Zelina Vega? How far does that go? Does she go over there?
Well, she won't be allowed to because.
Oh yeah, never mind. Yeah, you're right about that. So it's one of those topics that I like to choose not to say anything about because I'm not really for these shows. It's tough knowing how much the WWE is actually worth, how much the payouts are for these shows, and how the WWE wouldn't put their foot down. Yet Vince McMahon talks about all these all-American values and stuff. So anyways, it is what it is. It's going to happen. It's going to happen for the next 10 years, I think it is. And,
9 more years out.
So all I can say is thank God for, companies like AEW and Impact Wrestling and ROH, New Japan, having alternatives to WWE and some of their bad decisions, I guess.
Yeah, there's even rumor that possibly for the next Crown Jewel show, which would be, I think, November or whatever, that the Prince is trying to get WWE to get Steve Austin to come back. My interesting thought in this next one, though, coming up on the 7th of June, is the fact that the 50-man Battle Royal is being listed as a Battle Royal, not a 50-man Royal Rumble. So how are they going to get 50 people all in that ring at one time? How are they augmenting rules?
I was going to say, I remember watching WrestleMania 2 and seeing guys like Hillbilly Jim and the Refrigerator Perry and Big John Studd and Andre the Giant in there. And remember, I remember seeing how packed that ring was. And I was thinking the same thing when I was like, okay, Battle Royal. But then when I was thinking about 50 guys in the ring all at once, I unless they make the ring bigger, I can't. I mean, it's going to be like, sardines in a can. It's the visual image would be interesting.
The only other way they could do it is set it up like World War III from WCW with multiple rings and that crazy rules. But so we'll see how that plays out, whether you watch it or not on the WWE Network or watch highlights on YouTube to see what happens. It's going down on June 7th, and 2 days later, Undertaker is expected to be in Niagara Falls for 2 hours at the Niagara Falls Comic-Con. Whether it happens or not due to WWE pulling him lately from other Comic-Con events, or the fact that he'll potentially be jet-lagged and aftermath of being against Goldberg. A lot of factors. I hope those who did buy tickets for Comic-Con in Niagara Falls do get to see him. Once in a lifetime sort of deal, since he is very elusive in being a meet and greet guy. So if you get a chance and he's there, take it and go to Niagara Falls Comic-Con to meet The Undertaker. But yeah, they seem to be living in the past, the Prince of Saudi Arabia, and that's why he even wanted people like Yokozuna and the Ultimate Warrior to be brought in. And they threw enough money at Shawn Michaels to get him out of retirement for the last show.
And I just did it again. I gotta learn how to work this mic. Anyways, I mean, yeah, and just another black guy to a company that's publicly traded. I don't know.
Yeah. So one of the other big news that came out, other than the fact that Brock Lesnar is back and now has the briefcase and can tease whoever he's going to challenge for, Dolph Ziggler's back to try and take, I guess, that Kevin Owens' place against Kofi. But Mick Foley introduced a brand new title, which might be more of a rehash title without the hardcore name to it, and taking away the violence. But it could just be a simple title that happens anywhere and everywhere. But the 24/7 title was announced. Your thoughts on the 24/7 title?
You know, it's funny you talk about the Hardcore Championship and they don't want to refer to it as any kind of, you know, anything to do with violence. The fact is, though, there's nothing stopping somebody from taking a kendo stick to somebody backstage or ringside or in the parking lot or in a Walmart or whatever the case may be. My biggest thing is who's eligible for this title, because I tell you this, if anybody's eligible for this title, you're going to see me doing a run-in at SummerSlam and get my ass kicked out of Scotiabank Arena, but I'll be walking out of there the 24/7 champion. As far as the belt itself goes, it looks like junk. It looks like somebody picked it up at a yard sale and then shined it up and then like, okay, this is our newest championship. You had mentioned in the show we did previously with regards to Foley, a tough spot he was put in to announce this thing, and then, you know, getting booed. I think the only pop he got was when I think he mentioned one of his cheap pop city pops. But I don't mind the concept, but it's going to be a concept where people stick to the fact that, hey, this is who's eligible. Announcers can't win it. Referees can't win it. You know, in my case, fans can't win it. But anyways, it'll be interesting to see where they go with this. And it's just another one of Vince McMahon's little, you know, toys of the month or toys of the week or whatever the case, you know, the shiny new toy that he's just invented, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, he'll see something else, and the 24/7 will become nothing more than, say, the European title. You know, it's just a good idea, bad idea, but as far as what's going on right now, definitely bad idea.
Yeah, it's like a super ugly belt, a joke in a way. I said it almost looked like a Flavor Flav clock put on a leather strap. Foley, unfortunately, the announcement went over like a wet fart in church. Total booze to silence. It comes off looking desperate, just like the wild card situation. WWE isn't into the whole intergender wrestling, but having these rules totally opens it up to being intergender, because I believe you mentioned you saw a video of Kathy Kelly searching for R-Truth to interview him, but had a referee in tow. We saw with the 24/7 rule of the hardcore title a decade plus ago that somebody like Terry Reynolds and Molly Holly ended up winning that title. And so it is, if the same rules apply, is going to be intergender, and they kind of have to figure out what they're officially actually doing with it. But yeah, the only upside potential is the use of social media, where maybe on YouTube or Facebook Live, Instagram, Twitter, you got people searching for the champion like Matt Hardy did, Kathy Kelly, Drake Maverick. They were all searching for him on Tuesday, using it to actually film a title defense or change, depending on what they want to do. But it can't be good for a month of entertainment and doing those spots and fail afterwards and be ignored. This is going to have to be an ongoing concept for it to get over. Your thoughts on any of how it should be presented going forward?
Well, first of all, pull a Medusa and toss that title in the trash. That'd be a number one thought right there. Number two is if you're gonna market a title like this, at least stick to a format. So if you're gonna try to get this silly thing over, at least go and make it consistent as far as when it's being defended. If you're always doing, if you're going to do backstage stuff, then make it consistent and do the backstage stuff. The one thing that was interesting to me that I couldn't really figure out was Mick Foley talking about that third hour Raw, and that's when the highlights were going to happen or whatever the heck he said. That to me is irrelevant. It's like, if it's 24/7, who cares about the third hour of Raw? I mean, basically you could be checking in a hotel at 2:00 in the morning and have somebody come out of nowhere. That's the stuff that's going to make the title relevant, is, like I said, consistency, but making it unique in the fact that it's fun. Have those moments in a Walmart or outside of a bathroom stall or whatever the case may be, where all of a sudden you have no idea who the next champion is going to be, and they come out, sneak attack, win the title, and then they take off, and the chase is on again. You know what I mean? If I don't know, it's a comedy title. It's nothing that should be major relevance to it. And it's like you mentioned before with regards to Terry winning this, and I think one of the Godfather's hoes had won the old hardcore title. So as long as they don't make it a major title, it's going to be buried in the background eventually anyways, but at least have some fun with it right now.
Yeah, it's something for some of the guys like EC3 and all them that don't get normal things. Noah has they're going to have something to do. I'm glad you actually brought that up about what Mick Foley said about the third hour. I'm not sure if you noticed when he said it's going to get back to Raw and be dirty and everything. They changed the lighting. There wasn't as the red lights were turned off. It was more black and white, more light on the ring. And I'm wondering if at the same time, if you look at other cable companies or networks, some of their more edgier shows are on after 9:00, or in this case, it could be 10:00 because they're deeming it the third hour. Could the WWE be looking at turning off the lights, making it more how they do with the house shows, but at the same time, maybe being a TV 14 in the third hour, and still being PG from 8 till 10?
No, I'll tell you this, as long as they're not going back to pillow fights, I'm okay with it. I mean, they need change right now, and if they're not going to end the brand split, I think it's basically throwing anything they can at the wall and seeing what sticks. So I forgot about that. I forgot about I did notice the whole image change of Raw and stuff, but who's to say that's going to last as well? Here's the company, Vince McMahon had come out and said, oh, hey, yeah, no more general managers, and the three McMahons are sitting in the ring and like, oh, we're going to give you what you want. And then sure enough, a week later, it's like back to Baron Corbin. So
yeah,
I don't know. I just I have no faith in WWE right now. I mean, I say that I'm going to SummerSlam and NXT and everything there has to do with that, but that's me being a wrestling fan. But as far as the product itself goes right now, it needs a changeover.
Yeah, I'd agree. Definitely some new blood just kind of being more creative, because somewhere along the line, whether it was the Attitude Era or the ending of the Monday Night Wars, things changed drastically from planning around the pool with just Pat Patterson, Vince McMahon, and Bruce Pritchard creating a year's worth of storylines to now everything being changed on the fly, even before, like minutes before it goes out the curtain on a Monday night or a Tuesday night. And that was not how WWE was ever booked before. And it's reminiscent of, unfortunately, how WCW was in their dying days. They need to maybe refocus and start going back to long-term storybook planning. And I guess it kind of helps with Bruce being rehired. They have newer people like Abyss, bringing in Shane Helms, who did some good work with Impact. They got Sanjay Dutt, some experienced guys with some creative interest. And it's no knock on Arn Anderson, but he was there for a number of years, 17 years or so since WCW went down. You kind of need fresh minds and get rid of some of the soap opera writers that know nothing about sports entertainment. And maybe AEW and their presentation, what we see this weekend, will spark some sort of creative flow for WWE. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, it's everybody goes and picks on the Hollywood writers, so to speak, or the comedy writers, or it's funny when somebody gets hired by the WWE and they get this list of credentials. It's like, oh, this guy worked on, Home Improvement or Saturday Night Live or whatever the case may be. And it's like, okay, that's great, but how do they transition to wrestling? And some of them do. But then some of the guys who have been around for a while in the wrestling business have no idea how to book. Ole Anderson's one of those guys. You know what I mean? People hated that time. Jim Hurd, who was apparently in charge of WCW at one point, he knew nothing about the business.
He worked for Domino's.
Yeah, and but in saying that as well, there are times where all of a sudden, you have somebody who's gifted who will throw all their ideas at Vince McMahon or Triple H, have those ideas accepted, and the next thing you know, right at showtime, they get yanked, everything gets rewritten, and they feel like basically they're getting paid to be useless. And case in point, there was a guy who quit, I think, right on the day of WrestleMania or the Hall of Fame ceremony, in between those 2 days, and told Vince McMahon, he goes, remember this moment. And then there was the Road Dogg, who stepped down because of the fact he was pitching ideas, and Vince McMahon kept changing everything up. So it's here, he had this young rookie guy who quit, and somebody who had been in the business and families has been in the business forever, who just said, hey, enough's enough. I want to step down. So it's again, it's WWE. It is what it is right now.
Yeah, and a lot of fans were also blaming Road Dogg for the failings of what was going on with SmackDown. And, at the end of the day, it is Vince McMahon who says yes or no. You can have all the ideas you want, and they're not going to get used, because as much as there's millions of people watching, regardless of what the ratings say, and the numbers going down, but it's an audience of one. You got to entertain Vince McMahon, and if he's not entertained, then it doesn't matter. And unfortunately, he's nearing 75 years old, and the thoughts of a 75-year-old man compared to a 35-year-old man or even the 18-year-olds is totally different.
Yeah, as much as people have in the past said that Vince McMahon is a genius, they've also got to recall some of his some of the dumbest ideas he's ever had. And I was listening to a show just recently, and they're talking about some of the gimmicks that they had in the mid 90s. Guys like the Goon, or TL Hopper, or Bastion Booger, rest in peace. But again, it's like you just said, everything goes through one guy in the very end. So it's like somebody can pitch these ideas. Even the story of what's his name there? Puke.
Darren Drozdov?
Yes. I forget where it was. It might have been. You know what? I think it was the movie Beyond the Mat, and they're showing Puke's Darren Drozdov's audition and how he got the part. And McMahon was like right there, cheering him on as he's throwing up into a garbage bin. But that's his mentality. And some of the stories you read about this guy is like he's at the office until 8 o'clock on a Friday night. He's a lot of times there till 3 o'clock in the morning, at the office because he's brainstorming. Here's a guy who never sleeps, always works out, blah, 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 blah. And, he's a in shape guy for 70 years old or whatever the case may be. But what's his legacy? Is it what he's leaving behind right now? Or is it what he created 30 plus years ago? And right now, to me as a wrestling fan, he's destroying what he built. And he's becoming a senile old man who doesn't get what fans want in 2019. And unfortunately, what you see right now is going to continuously diminish to the point that he's either going to be forced out or you're going to see the company sold to somebody else, So it's I don't know, the next 5 years for WWE is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, unfortunately, his legacy is going, he's going to die at the gorilla position at the rate he's going. He's not going to go off and into the sunset. And those claims of him wanting to be more focused on the XFL when it comes up, that's all good and well, but I don't see him letting go of the WWE either. And so hopefully they can find a balance and keep things going in a good direction, and maybe a good spark and kick in the ass from somebody else to acknowledge that, okay, what we're doing isn't working. And yeah, I'm a lifer WWE guy, but even some of the stuff going on right now, I can shake my head. Like, clearly Baron Corbin is not getting over, yet he's being shoved down our throat to the point where it's go away heat and turn the channel heat, and not necessarily against the man himself. It's about the presentation. So one can only hope that things improve for WWE. A lot of things, as you said, being thrown against the wall, see what sticks, but hopefully it doesn't come off as too terribly desperate and fans start being listened to. So that's going to, conclude this week's edition of the Scumbags of Wrestling Podcast. Want to thank you for being a part of it. We looked at everything going on with AEW and StarCast this week, remembering Owen Hart, looking at the upcoming stuff with Smash Wrestling. Be a part of the charity events we're a part of. Get your tickets and come join us in either Dresden or at Montcalm Secondary School. How about the Dresden hockey team and also Ethan in his fight for cancer? Chris, thank you for being a part of it. Where can people reach out to you and find you on the Sharpshooter?
They can reach me at the shrpshtr.ca, which gives you pretty much links to everywhere else. So Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, yada, yada, yada. As well as the shrpshtrpodcast.ca. That is the official podcast of the Sharpshooter website. Looking to build bigger and better things, expanding our brand, so to speak. Try to get into the 2019 market to see what people are doing and to try to, see what we can do to get more exposure for both of our brands out there. So it's, like I said, it's going to be trial and error, but it's something I wouldn't mind getting to the point that by SummerSlam we've got things completely perfect. I know myself, I've tried Twitch, I wasn't a big fan of it, and then trying this Google Hangouts thing tonight is pretty cool. I looked, and apparently we can go for 8 hours live, so it's not saying that we ever will or come close to it unless we're watching WrestleMania and doing like a live kind of feed about the show we're watching. But I think it'll be cool because we can, with Hangouts anyways, we can now do on the spot interviews. We can bring the interviews to you live. So with stuff like Super Showdown coming up, or the Northern tournaments, or SummerSlam weekend, or any of the shows I'm going to, or any of the shows that Sean's going to, It's just more content for wrestling fans out there to see. And it's everybody can talk about WWE and AEW and everything else, but it's to me, it's the Canadian independent wrestling scene, and it's like the work that you had done, Sean, with the Tyson's Wrestling School. Getting their names out there, and I know who they are because you were talking about them, and now a lot of people know who they are because of stuff like that. And I think getting our brands out there is important, but I think getting the exposure on these guys before we're watching them for $9.99 a month, or in the case of AEW, I think it's what $40 or $50 or something like that for the pay-per-view coming up.
Yeah, I think it's about $50.
Yeah, but it's going to be well worth it. And if you're looking for package deals and stuff like that, I think some of the scumbags had posted it on Sean's group. So I know if you're looking to watch StarCast as well as Double or Nothing, check out the Scumbags of Wrestling on Facebook for promotion codes and stuff like that. But it's going to be a heavy weekend, and it's only May.
Yeah, great summer coming up. Once again, thank you for being on here. People can get in touch with us at the Facebook page, Scumbags of Wrestling. We have Twitter and email at scumbagswrestling@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast, whether it's now here on YouTube and Hangouts or our regular versions being on Spotify, Podcoin, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. I think I mentioned Spotify twice. Anyways, and there's a whole bunch more. I'm working on getting on iHeartRadio. Hopefully, announcement very soon on that one. They say about 2 weeks. We're getting close to that. And yeah, share this with your friends. Support independent wrestling and support some local charities wherever you get it. And so until next time, thank you for being with us. And we'll be back next week with breakdown of Double or Nothing, the London show coming up, and also the Northern, plus whatever else comes up over the week with WWE news. So until then, thank you, and we'll see you next time.